Number 10. Katy Perry collects hair. The singer was once asked during an interview a very simple and cute question of, "What's in your purse?" And fans perhaps hoped that she would respond with a bottle of Killer Queen or a cupcake crumb. But Katy Perry answered, "It's just a big empty bag." But she went on to describe what used to be in the purse. She claimed that while in attendance at her first Grammy Awards ceremony, she got to share a dressing room with Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift. Now with all that excitement, you'd think she'd ask for a picture or something, right? No, she asked them for a lock of each of their hairs, which Katy found, quote, "totally awesome." Well, her definition of the word awesome must be very different from ours, because this sounds just creepy as all heck. She then elaborated that she would tie little bows to each of them and put them in her purse. Now this sounds so made up, how could it be true? Well, Miley and Taylor actually backed up this story online, and Perry claims to this day that Miley Cyrus is both the most famous person in her purse and in her contacts. Oh, hey, Katie, I think you dropped something. Number 9. Ellen mistreats employees. In her first on-air appearance since announcing the end of her eponymous daytime talk show, Ellen DeGeneres called the press cycle around allegations of toxicity at her workplace orchestrated and misogynistic. The announcement that her show would be cancelled came after months of receiving negative press following a BuzzFeed article reporting former employees alleging that the environment was racially insensitive, filled with harassment and bullying. Ellen maintained in interviews that these allegations were not the reason that she would be leaving the show, simply claiming that the program was no longer challenging for her. While the BuzzFeed report did not allege toxic behavior by Ellen herself, several former staff members claimed that the whole "be kind" motto she had was not genuine at all, which was reflected in a Twitter thread published by comedian Kevin T. Porter. He asked people to send in their horror stories about the host's rudeness over the years, and he received over 2,000 replies. Warner Brothers opened an investigation and concluded that there were some flaws in the day-to-day management at the studio. Following this, Ellen appeared on the 18th season premiere of her show in 2020 and made an on-air apology to viewers, claiming responsibility, later stating that there was no way she could know the true nature of the work environment due to the 255 employees that worked for her across multiple buildings. Hey, ever heard of like a complaint box? Number 8. Prince Charles's affair. He's now the King of England, but he's not always played by the rules. You see, in 1981, Prince Charles, at the time, married Lady Diana, who was 20 years old at the time, leaving a 13-year age gap between them. Behind closed doors, it was speculated that Charles was never in love with Diana in the first place, and it was later proven to be true. While on the outside things seemed pleasant, behind the scenes, Charles was secretly meeting up and having an affair with his ex-girlfriend, Camilla Bowles. The alleged relationship was written about in the 1992 Diana Her True Story book, but in 1994, Charles confirmed the allegations in a documentary, because that's a great place to do that. The couple filed for a divorce in 1996, and Diana died 1 year later. While the now king made it clear that he had no plans to remarry, he ended up getting remarried in 2005 to, oh hey, look, it's Camilla Bowles. Shocking. Number 7. Jonathan Majors charges. Jonathan Majors may be familiar to those of you who are fans of the MCU as Kang the Conqueror, the newest big bad addition to the never-ending roster of villains in Marvel's Rogue Gallery. Unfortunately, it looks like he may end up getting the CGI eraser treatment due to an incident in March of this year. Majors was arrested on misdemeanor charges of and following a domestic dispute with his girlfriend. These charges, however, would only be the first domino to fall, as rumors began circulating about similar instances in the past, with many people in both the Yale community, where he went to school, and the New York theater scene, where he studied and practiced performing, claiming Majors was well known for being emotionally violent and professionally abusive, but never physically violent. While Majors is currently in a battle to prove his innocence, claiming the situation to have been blown out of proportions, a series of texts uncovered by his lawyer seemingly proved that there was some merit to the incident. They showed Majors' girlfriend had passed out during the incident and as such had to be hospitalized, where she was reported to have several bruises and scratch marks throughout her entire body. This meant that the charges would stick, and Majors is definitely on his way to the bottomless pit of cancelled celebrities. Number 6. Caitlyn Jenner's transition. Now, this one isn't disturbing because of Caitlyn, it's because of how many people felt that her business needed to be a part of their lives. Let people live, you jerks. Rumors had been circulating of Caitlyn's transition since the early 1970s. The former Olympian had publicly denied these rumors for years, with many family members and friends even backing her story up time and time again. But in 2015, the rumors had begun surfacing again due to Jenner being spotted leaving a doctor's office by a tabloid journalist, supposedly after just receiving estrogen treatments. Jenner had also recently undergone reconstructive surgery, which seemed to only add more fuel to the fire. The photo taken and the speculation began to go viral, despite Jenner not being fully out at the time. But a few months later, following these events, she came out as transgender on a highly publicized interview for Diane Sawyer. In the interview, Jenner expressed the gender identity struggles that she has faced through her entire life, having to hide her true self in order to maintain some macho, sporty persona and for fear of not being accepted. Even revealing that her first wife, Christy Scott, was the first to really understand her struggles, and despite being divorced in 1998, she's publicly expressed her well wishes towards Caitlyn and how proud she is for being herself. You go, girl. Number 5. Kevin Spacey. For a long time, Kevin Spacey was well known in the Hollywood community as a quality actor with a steady career and no signs of that stopping. That was until October 2017, when a BuzzFeed article, once again, had been published alleging that Spacey had made unwanted advances towards a then 14 Anthony Rapp. Spacey was quick to deny the speculation, claiming it to be another Hollywood scandal to fill screen time, but since the release of that article, 30 more people have come forward with their own allegations against Spacey, ranging from harassment to attempted assault. Spacey pulled back, fake apologizing for what he says must have been some drunken behavior to Rapp, and he even attempted to shift the subject by coming out of the closet. But the truth had already been set free, and becoming a part of the now famous Me Too movement, Spacey was dropped from all projects he was involved in and has been on Hollywood's blacklist ever since, where he rightfully belongs. Number 4. Tiger Woods' infidelity. Since 1999, the famous golfer had not gone a single year without winning at least one golf major championship. In fact, between the years of 1997 and 2008, he had won 14 majors. He was married to a model, had a beautiful home, and pockets full of cash. What more could you want? Apparently for Tiger, he wanted someone that wasn't his wife. In late November 2009, Tiger was seen by neighbors being chased out of his home by his wife, Ellen Nordegren, with a golf club, before peeling out of his driveway in his Escalade and crashing into a fire hydrant and then a tree. He lied unconscious on the street for 6 minutes before coming to, but by that time, it was already too late. News coverage began speculating that there must have been some case of infidelity with Tiger and his wife. And while rumors had speculated that Tiger had a mistress on the side, it turned out that this guy had a lady in every course, so to speak. He admitted on air to the misdoings and lost his endorsements with Nike, Gatorade, Gillette, and Accenture, before announcing his retirement entirely from golf. Woods reportedly confessed to sleeping with 120 women outside of his marriage, but it wasn't until April 2010 when Ellen decided to split up with Woods for good after she discovered that one of those mistresses was the next door neighbor's daughter who was in college at the time. Go Capanu! Number 3. John Lennon's investigation. Lead guitarist of the Beatles and an incredible musician in his own right, John Lennon was always very open on his political views. He was anti-war, anti-establishment, and anti-government, proven by his counterculture-esque songs like Give Peace a Chance. This marked Lennon as a national threat, and his theory on what that meant was a little fishy. Many times in interviews, he would claim that he was under surveillance 24/7 and that he was seeing the same cars driving near his residence essentially every day. Now, while at first this was taken as the ramblings of a hippie under the influence of mind-altering narcotics, this theory was proven to be true in 1972 when the Immigration and Naturalization Service tried to deport him after the FBI had confirmed that Lennon was under investigation for over a year. He was able to fight back and stay in the country to continue his anti-war agenda. See, hippies aren't always crazy. Okay? Number 2. Arnold has a secret kid. Action movie star and former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger made headlines in 2011 with the revelation that an old rumor was in fact true. In 1996, Arnold was married to Maria Shriver, a member of the Kennedy family, and they were prepping to welcome their new son Christopher into the world. Arnie didn't prep by building cribs or baby-proofing the outlets though. Instead, he chose to have an affair with his longtime housekeeper Mildred Baina. Around the same time Christopher was born, so was his illegitimate son, Joseph. Rumors began to rise after his wife noticed the strange and sudden absence of the housekeeper, and wondered if there may have been a more sinister reason for her departure. It was later revealed in 2011, though, that Arnold decided to address the rumors and claim Joseph as his own. It turns out that Arnold had given Mildred a large severance package so that she could properly raise their son, leaving on what they called good terms. Eventually, though, after many years of trying and lots of paperwork, Maria and Arnold were finally divorced, and he is now able to spend more time as a father. Mildred is a chef, and little Joseph is now all grown up and following in his father's footsteps as both a model and in the movie industry. And number 1, Donald Trump's criminal activities. In 2006, Donald Trump was known solely as a wealthy real estate mogul with a hit reality show called The Apprentice. He had recently been married to Melania Trump, and he had a newly born 4-month-old baby. However, reports leaked that Trump was in the midst of an affair with adult film star Stormy Daniels after she filed a civil suit claiming that the contract he made her sign to keep quiet was invalid. Daniels claimed that herself and Trump had shared a very intimate relationship for roughly a year during his marriage to Melania. These weren't the first allegations of an affair, as Trump has been back and forth in the media since the 1970s, being accused by 26 women of harassment or misconduct. While these rumors never held any merit at first, the truth was finally set free. After being the most chaotic president in recent history, it was announced in March that Trump was being arrested on 34 separate violations of a New York law against falsifying business documents to conceal another crime. Basically, over the years, he was essentially taking company money and using it to pay off anyone who might have been a threat to him, both personally and politically. Well, hey, thanks for the free money, Donnie. We'll see you never.
Jennifer Lopez's new documentary is getting some mixed reviews, some believing she exposed too much of her personal life with Ben Affleck. First off, we see Ben talk about how he felt exposed after Jennifer shared a private book of their emails and letters. 20 years ago, I fell in love with the love of my life, and during that time I was making an album called This Is Me Then, Lopez is heard telling a crowd in the documentary. I hadn't made an album since then. Years later, we got back together and I was very inspired. The inspiration came after her, quote, Bible, she calls it, which was the book Affleck gave her on their first Christmas together. It is every letter and every email that we wrote to each other from 20 years ago to today, she says, sharing that he titled the, quote, Bible, The Greatest Love Story Never Told by Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, 2001 to 2021 and counting. Lopez placed the book in the studio and let her collaborators go through it for song inspiration. To Ben's surprise, Ben appears shocked and surprised to find out that Lopez shared this private book he gave her with everyone in the studio. When talking to the artist working with Jennifer Lopez, Affleck discovers that they gave him a nickname. I was like, you've been showing all the musicians these letters? Affleck says in the documentary, and they were like, yeah, we call you Pen Affleck. And I was like, oh my god. In the documentary, we also learned that Ben had some serious reservations of his love story being shared so publicly. I did really find the beauty and the poetry and the irony in the fact that it's the greatest love story never told, he tells the cameras, and if you're making a record about it, that seems kind of like you're telling it. In another scene, Affleck expresses how it was an adjustment for him to have her share their private life with the entire world. Jen was really inspired by this experience, which is how artists do their work, he says. I certainly do the same things, but things that are private, I have always felt are sacred and special because, in part, they're private. So this was something of an adjustment for me. Ultimately, Ben comes to terms with Lopez's project after realizing it's not all about their relationship. I don't really love being in the making of a documentary about my personal life, which is why I'm so relieved that I'm not really, well, it seems like I might be in this, but I'm not really, he says. I was worrying for no reason. The movie wasn't about me. It was about the ability to love yourself, and that love story is a lot effing harder to find than Prince Charming. Next, we learned Ben had to make compromises when they got back together. Getting back together, I said, listen, one of the things I don't want is a relationship on social media, Ben says. Then I sort of realized it's not a fair thing to ask her. It's sort of like, you're gonna marry a boat captain, and you're like, well, I don't like the water. He added, we're just two people with kind of different approaches trying to learn to compromise. Next, we learned in the documentary that some A-list stars declined to be in the movie musical about her life that accompanies the documentary. In the documentary, Lopez reveals Anthony Ramos, the In the Heights star, was offered the role of her significant other in the rebound scene of the movie. He was going to do the rebound number with me and the glass house, she tells wardrobe supervisor Sean Barton during rehearsals, and he was like, I'm friends with Mark Anthony. Lopez was married to Mark Anthony from 2004 to 2014, and the pair share 16-year-old twins. The rebound scene that Anthony was supposed to be in shows Lopez in a toxic relationship with a drunken partner. The singer, however, never specifically mentions who the song and scene is about. We also see Jennifer crying about a past relationship and how it negatively impacted her self-esteem. She gets emotional as she recalls a relationship in which she says she was, quote, manhandled before she hit rock bottom and realized it was time to get out. Though she doesn't name the ex, singer and actress speaks candidly through tears about the experience and how it affected her going forward. Being thrown around and manhandled is not fun, she explains. I was never in a relationship where I got beat up, thank God, but I've definitely been manhandled in a couple of other unsavory things. Jen doesn't reveal who treated her that way, but her long career in showbiz has involved plenty of high-profile relationships in addition to her marriage now to Ben Affleck. Jennifer shares more about her past toxic relationships by saying, quote, there were people in my life who said I loved you and then didn't do things that were kind of in line with the word love. You have to hit rock bottom where you're in situations that are so uncomfortable and so painful that you finally go, I don't want this anymore. A therapist said to me, what if this was your daughter? What would you do? And it was so clear, she called. I was like, I'd tell her, get out of there and never look back. But for me, it was so clouded and so complicated with so much of my past and my own pain and hurt and dysfunction that I couldn't see clearly. It was like looking through fog. Jane Fonda had some honest words with Jennifer in the documentary while on a phone call with her. I want you to know that I don't entirely know why, but I feel invested in you and Ben, and I really want this to work, tells Jen of Ben Affleck on a call filmed for the documentary. However, this is my concern. Like, it feels too much like you're trying to prove something instead of just living it. You know, either every other photograph is kissing and the two of you hugging. Jennifer shrugs it off and laughs though. That's just us living our life, says. But Jane Fonda did have a point, and if Jennifer listened to her, it may have saved her from receiving horrendous reviews online after both movies came out. Some saying the movie musical is the worst movie ever made. One reviewer made a list called The Reasons Why This Sucked. I had no idea what was going on in the movie. There was no theme. Actually, there were too many themes. There were so many talented artists who were used more as props. They should have had bigger roles. This movie seems like an ode to herself for nailing down a man. It's not really about love. It's a movie about conquering a man. It's basically telling everybody that other relationships that her and Ben had were just filler until they could be together again. Her kids and Ben's kids are going to be watching this. Do they really need to know how much she loves making love to their dad? We all know it's not her voice singing those songs, and if it is, auto-tune should get a lot of credit, the reviewer says. The reviewer finishes off by saying she's narcissistic, way too in love with herself, and for people clicking more than 2 stars, did you actually watch it? Or are you just clicking on 5 stars because you love this egomaniac? Thoughts in the documentary on former co-star Jane Fonda's phone call, saying Jane is still very protective of her and felt like you're putting yourself out there to get beat up again. Jane Fonda's concerns resurfaced when she thinks about photos of the couple at the Grammy Awards, in which Ben Affleck's disinterested expression became the target of memes galore and gossip about the pair's relationship. I get real scared, you know, with all that about the Grammys, and he looks unhappy, and I'm like, oh my god, what's happening? Fonda told Jennifer. Nothing, lied. Jennifer Lopez also revealed she got multiple no thank yous from more fellow celebs that she hoped would appear with her in the movie. Taylor Swift, whom Jennifer joined on stage during Taylor's Red Tour 2013, declined, according to Today.com. Jason Momoa, Jennifer Coolidge, Lizzo, Vanessa Hudgens, Ariana Grande, and Snoop Dogg also allegedly declined. Khloe Kardashian was another potential celebrity cameo who dropped out. I don't want to force anybody to this who go, it's gonna be fun, Verse says in the film. Nobody wants to say no to me, Benny. I get that, she tells her manager, Benny Medina. But when an actor doesn't like a script good enough or is worried about it, that is what they'll say. Jennifer, who ultimately put $20 million of her own money in the visual album, also admits in the film that the whole project made her nervous too. People are scared to put out there. I get it, she says. Took me a long time. I'm scared. I don't act like I'm scared. That's the secret to my whole effing career. Looking back on her childhood, Lopez also reveals that she felt very ignored by her dad and that her mother was always the center of attention. She got used to being around people who acted that way. Jen felt emotionally neglected as a child, Ben Affleck says. He continues drawing parallels between her longing for approval and his own past struggles with alcoholism. It's a hard thing to look at somebody whose professional life is wildly successful and who on Instagram looks like they're living the happiest life in the world. The thing you discover is there isn't enough alcohol in all the liquor stores in the world to fill up that thing. In Jennifer's case, I don't think there's enough followers or movies or records or any of that stuff. Part of you still feels a longing and pain. Ultimately, that's the work that you gotta do on your own.
Jumping right in, we have their separation. Jada recently revealed that the pair, who everyone assumed was still unhappily married, have actually been separated for years, and everything that has happened between the two since 2016 has all occurred when they were not in an official relationship. And wow, a lot has happened. The separation was revealed alongside a myriad of other strange confessions and was followed by some even crazier revelations, which we will get into. The two say that they have always loved each other very deeply and that they always will, even going so far as to say that they are not planning to divorce, but they wanted to officially separate and provide each other space, which brings us to our next point. Up next is the revelation that Jada and Will were in an open marriage. I mean, this comes as no surprise to anyone, right? Like, come on. Now, a couple years back, this was all anyone was talking about. How Will Smith and Jada were in an open relationship, but only Jada was partaking openly, and by that I mean in the public eye. The man that Jada had begun a relationship with actually moved into the house with the happy husband and wife. This arrangement definitely created an even more tense environment for the group of them, and I can't imagine having to live with that. I mean, my parents split up earlier this year, and living with them even for 1 month while things got packed up was a pretty awkward and tense experience. Thinking of one of them inviting their partner to come live with us? Yeah, I'd press pause on that one. Some secrets should not come out, like Jada's hesitation to marry and the emotional reaction that she had on her wedding day. Jada and Will got married when they were very young, and it was actually Jada's mother who pressured her into the marriage because she really liked Will and saw a lot of potential in him. However, that decision aged poorly, obviously. For Will's birthday, she posted a fairly old photo of them with their 2 kids and one of Jada's sons from her previous relationship. Many fans sent birthday wishes, but there were a few, a good amount, who made snarky remarks and rehashed lines from Red Table Talks, contradicting the photo in the post. Some people commented on how she didn't love him romantically, and a clip came up of her saying how she cried all the way down the aisle because she did not want to be married to him, and how she felt pressured to be wed even though she never wanted to get married. Next up, we have the bonus son. Well, many know of the existence of Jaden and Willow Smith, not a lot know about the existence of the third son. Trey Smith was the product of Will's previous marriage to Cherie Zampino and tends to fly under the radar in the eye of the media. In 2018, Jada brought Zampino on her show and spilled the tea on the real story behind Trey, their relationship to each other, and Will's role as his biological father. For many Smith fans, this is the first time anyone had even heard about Trey. Will claims that he had to distance himself from Trey and his mother following the divorce. Will recounts struggling to maintain a healthy enough relationship with Zampino for him to play the role of Trey's father figure. Trey was raised by his mom alone, growing up feeling betrayed and abandoned by Will. Eventually, Will made amends and became a proper part of Trey's life, but for a long time, Trey was kept hidden from the public, surely leaving a stain on the family unit that can never be washed away. Next up, Complex Grandpa. This one is really dark. Like, okay, kind of in a funny way, because it's not actually dark, I guess. Like, the dark thing didn't happen, but no, yeah, it's pretty dark. Will Smith released a memoir called Will in 2021 that was chock full of info that you would have to waterboard out of me or pay me a huge sum of money. Okay, yeah, I get it well. Proceed. The actor explains that while he was growing up, his father physically harmed himself and his mom on continuous and frequent occasions. So, in return for this treatment, he vowed to seek revenge for his mother when he was older and capable of more. Eventually, his father was diagnosed with cancer and Will was forced to care for him while he was bedridden. Will saw this as the perfect opportunity to take his dad down. He wrote, "One night, as I delicately wheeled him from his bedroom toward the bathroom, a darkness arose within me." He then went on to describe the moment he contemplated pushing him down the stairs. He noted that no one would have suspected him, and the moment was just perfect. He wrote, "I'm one of the best actors in the world. My 911 call would be Academy Award level." Will ultimately decided not to end his father's life, instead taking care of him until his passing in 2016. Of natural causes, I think. Next is dating pre-Slapgate. Ahead of the release of her new book, Worthy, Jada Pinkett Smith has revealed a ton of information once thought to just be rumors. Well, we've already covered the fact that she has been separated from Will Smith for a while now. Another fun piece of information has also been revealed. I don't know if it's fun, but it's information. Anyway, it's been revealed that before Chris Rock was slapped across the face by Will Smith live at the Oscars, Chris had actually asked Jada Pinkett Smith out on a date. Now, when you hear that, you must think, oh, he asked her out before they even met. Nope. This situation actually took place in 2016 at the height of the first round of separation rumors, which it turned out are completely true. At the time, Chris either had some inside info or he believes everything he reads online. According to Jada, Chris reached out and shot his shot, I guess. He called and he said he would love to take her out, which she was like, why? He clarified and told Jada he was under the impression that herself and Will were getting a divorce for real. When she revealed that this wasn't the case, Chris was so embarrassed and began to apologize over and over. Though they eventually moved past the moment, it may explain why Will Smith was so aggressive with Rock at the Oscars. There's no way he was unaware of the situation. Next up, we have the Smiths' self-raised tots. Rumors have been flying around for years that Willow and Jaden Smith basically raised themselves. Their upbringing was nothing to scoff at. Jaden was on track to becoming an actor after starring in the 2008 remake of the classic Karate Kid series alongside martial arts and opera legend Jackie Chan, but later shifted his focus to a more entrepreneurial side of things, developing his own fashion brand, which has garnered him massive success. His sister Willow opted to stick with her creative roots, however, has made quite the name for herself in music. Unfortunately, their behavior comes from a place of neglect. During an episode of Red Table Talk, Jaden confronted his parents, calling out their terrible parenting skills. With both being so busy in their careers, they were never home to care for the youngsters. Jaden and Willow recount spending a majority of their childhood with various nannies and teachers, only seeing their parents between projects or if they were working with their parents, like Jaden and Will in The Pursuit of Happiness. It turns out they were all well aware of the whole separation thing from the very beginning as well. Will and Jada must have been waiting until the kids were financially independent and out of the house to finally call it quits, something they should have done a lot sooner. In that same vein, we have the horrid story of Willow Smith's stalker. In 2021, on her mother's talk show Red Table Talk, Willow Smith revealed the heartbreaking, terrifying tale of her being cyber-stalked. Cyber-stalking is a little bit more insidious and scary. This guy was doing that to me, and he was actually doing that to me for a couple of years. He basically got my patterns, Willow Smith had stated. In December 2020, while on a vacation and absent from her house, the stalker broke into her home. Her mother, Jada Pinkett Smith, located a camp that was set up behind the house, created by the stalker. His intention was to wait for Willow to return home. Jada immediately called the police, and the authorities recommended throwing out the contents of the fridge and cabinets in case the stalker had placed something harmful in the food. Willow Smith decided to take the stalker to court, filing for a restraining order against him. It was discovered that the man had been stalking her online for years. The restraining order was granted, but Willow Smith still has severe trauma from the whole experience. Next up, we have the birthday brawl, literally. For Jada's 37th birthday, Will decided it would be a great idea to throw a massive surprise party. Now, it wasn't just their celebrity friends, some close family and what have you. He hired party planners to set it up and spent 3 days planning and getting everything ready, which really isn't that much time. He even booked Mary J. Blige to perform for her. Talk about a birthday gift. But that was not all. He traced her family roots and invited her family members from her long line of lineage. Not only did he find her family, he went out of his way to reach out and invite them to the party. You'd think she'd appreciate this labor of love, but instead she threw it back in his face, claiming he only did it to display his ego, and she hated the fact that he went out of his way to throw a party. He admitted he was devastated when she said those hurtful things, and it even sent him on a downward spiral that negatively impacted his life. This should have been one of the biggest of many red flags. I mean, if somebody just brought my entire family just from nowhere, that would be pretty scary. I don't think I'd like that either. I'm kind of with Jada on this one. Finally, we have Tupac. Jada was in a long-term relationship with Tupac years before she met Will, and his untimely passing was the end of their relationship. It's normal and even healthy to miss someone who passed, especially when you were romantically involved with them for years. But in 2012, while she and Will were still married, she posted a picture of her and Tupac in a very intimate embrace, and she captioned the photo, "I miss him." It makes sense wanting to share your deep feelings with the world, especially when they're affecting you the most, but that was a questionable photo to choose to post, especially when you're married to someone else. Not to mention, Will and Jada's daughter Willow wrote a letter addressed to Tupac after he passed because Willow claimed she knew he was still alive. One of the lines in the letter read, "Can you please come back so mommy and me can be happy? I think my mommy really misses you." It seems sweet and rather innocent, but at a young age she was aware of how much he still had a hold on Jada, and she wanted him to come back into their lives, which at that point seemed like it could have been the end of Will and Jada's marriage. Nothing came of it, obviously, but it makes you question how much Willow actually knew about the situation.
Number 10. Tom Cruise's cookie dough. Tom Cruise is known to have a bit of a bad temper. According to Leah Remini, Tom once lashed out at his assistants after he couldn't find a tube of cookie dough when Leah and her husband Angelo were over for a visit. She claims that Tom asked his assistants to prep the cookie dough, and when he walked into the kitchen a few minutes later to find no cookie dough waiting for him, he flipped. Tom went off at his flustered assistant, grabbing a science book, holding it above his head, and telling the assistant, "L. Ron Hubbard is here, Dave and I are here, and you are down here." According to Leah, the assistant had the fear of God put inside of them because they knew what was about to happen. Remini diffused the situation by casually pointing out that the cookie dough was behind Tom on the counter the entire time. Tom is known for his temper. A former assistant revealed that when Tom turned 19, he threw a book at her head because the book was a bunch of Teen Beat style articles written about him when he considered himself an adult. The search associated with Tom has claimed that this never happened and is just a story for Leah's book, but the assistants and Leah's husband were eyewitnesses, so nice try, science guy. Number 9. Bad parents. A large chunk of Leah Remini's book is dedicated to exposing Tom Cruise and his role in the scientific community. Apart from cookie dough, freakouts, and secret meetings, she mentions how terrible of a parent he really was. Tom and his ex Katy had their marriage after their daughter Suri was born, and in her book she speaks of their wedding day, where she discovered baby Suri on a tile floor surrounded by 3 women, including Tom's sister and his assistant. She was crying very loudly, and Leah claims that the women were speaking to her as if they were trying to calm down an angry and annoyed adult. Neither Katy nor Tom were anywhere to be seen when this happened, leaving a lot of people to question if Tom is even a good dad. We know he isn't these days, at least according to online sources and his family, but seems like Tom hasn't seen Suri in years. Number 8. Sharon Osborne. Sharon and Leah had a very bad public feud a few years back, but according to Leah, things are okay now. The two were co-hosts on the show The Talk, but Leah was let go following the very first season in 2011. At the time, Leah blamed Sharon Osborne for the firing as they had apparently had an altercation off camera. Leah called Sharon out for supposedly using racist language when speaking in reference to a crew member, but Sharon claims that never happened. Leah said that at the time she believed Sharon was her friend, and because of that, Tidal expected a lot from the co-host. The story was backed up by several co-hosts and more details were released. She had apparently been using some very poor words when speaking about her co-hosts Julie Chen and Sarah Gilbert. I will not repeat what she said because it is so rude and vile and just No. Leah also revealed that at times Sharon would even use slurs aimed at her that were usually associated with Italian people. When Ribisi would not support Sharon, she used the power behind the scenes to take Ribisi out for good. Number 7, John Travolta. Tom Cruise is not the only famous celebrity involved in weird science. Danny Zuko himself is a man who loves to read. In fact, he will tell you to do the same thing if you ask him why he's involved with the Church of Science. That's it, no explanation or what is in the book he's recommending, just go find one and read one. Read a book! I picked Harry Potter. John is well known to have confirmed his involvement with the crew, but there is specifically one really unsettling thing about him, and is that he seems like an okay guy, but as I said, every time someone asks him about what it means, he tells people to educate themselves and read a book. I found so many examples of celebrities all giving the exact same answer when they're asked this question, and it's horrifying. There is no straight answer, it's very weird, they tell you to go to a library, that's pretty sus. Number 6, Jada Pinkett Smith. For those who don't know, Jada lives in a world of science, but I can't even talk about what that means. Oh wait, you'll know what it means. Leah Remini, who you might know from King of Queens or Old School or just all the movies that she's in, is very outspoken, especially against Jada. The rumors that Will and Jada were big into science was something that Leah mentions in her book, Troublemaker, Surviving Hollywood and Weird Science, and she brought it up again when speaking to the Daily Beast in 2017. She claims to know for certain that Jada was involved for a long time. She had seen Will once in a blue moon, however, she did spot Jada attending several events at the Celebrity Center in Hollywood. When Leah claimed to have knowledge of this, Jada clapped back on Twitter, naming all of the houses of worship that she's visited without being an actual member of them. A year later, they appeared on Red Table Talk together to hash things out, and after the interview, Jada gushed about how they connected in the interview and said that they were two broken little babies inside of them that just were abandoned by their parents. And Leah was like, man, that lady needs help. Number 5, Giovanni Ribisi. Giovanni Ribisi, best known for his more comedic roles in movies like Ted, is another celebrity that is openly linked to the world of science, being another celebrity that encourages people to read a book and educate themselves instead of him having to explain the unexplainable. Gio actually used to practice Scientology alongside his co-star from My Name is Earl, Jason Lee, aka Earl Hickey, who you will know from plenty of great movies. Himself and Leah had butted heads for years, but back in 2016, the release of her book prompted an even greater hatred. These two have been at each other's throats ever since. Metaphorically speaking, it would be pretty weird if every time you went outside there was just Leah Remini and Giovanni Ribisi brawling on the streets. You can sell tickets to that. Gio is not the most famous person in this book to be exposed, but he is mentioned, so he counts. Number 4, Maggie Gyllenhaal. Maggie and Leah used to be very close when Leah was a former member of the Weird Science, but she has had a massive falling out with the group ever since. The controversy led to several altercations and rifts in friendships. Following her exit from the church, Maggie and Leah continued to argue and battle with each other as to what the superior decision was. The better place to be for Leah was behind a desk typing her feelings into a book. I've never read this book, so if you have, good for you. I barely had enough mental capacity to read the articles about this lady, let alone her actual words and thoughts. Maggie is just another celebrity that wishes Leah would stop telling so-called lies and misleading the public into thinking that the group are a bunch of famous nuts who play hide and seek together from time to time. Guys, Leah didn't make you look like that. You made you look like that. Number 3, Elizabeth Moss. Star of the popular series Handmaid's Tale, is another celebrity involved in the church, and this video is quite literally just a list of people involved in weird science that Leah Remini either has a beef with or has some kind of feud. Elizabeth and Leah have actually only crossed paths a handful of times, but each seems to be worse than the last. Leah is blasted by any and all celebrities linked to weird science, with Elizabeth just being one of the more shy of the bunch. Herself and Leah have been fairly reserved in their feud, with the only knowledge of its existence coming from Leah herself. A few years back, Elizabeth shared some of her views on the science side of things, and her words caused Leah to label the crew as a cult, and that their sole goal was to grow their numbers. Leah tore Elizabeth and her statements apart, causing a back and forth that lasts to this day. The argument is literally just the two going back and forth, claiming that the other is the reason for their annoyance. We've all been there. Number 2, Christie Aly. If there has ever been a difficult clip to watch on this list, This is the one. Leah Remini writes a lot about the celebrities she knows to be involved with the group, including Christie Aly. Kirstie is best known for her role on Cheers and in movies like It Takes Two. But if you are a fan of cringy clips, you might know her best from her season on Celebrity Big Brother. During her time on that show, she was asked about her beliefs a few times, but the best clip comes from her interaction with fellow castmate from that season, Rodrigo Alves. She tells her that the best way to educate herself is to read a book. Hey, I already said that before. But unlike TV hosts and interviewers in the past, she pushed further, telling Kirstie that she is right there, ready to go, so you could just explain what would be in the book, right? To which Kirstie said no. Rodrigo had her own set of issues on that season, but this moment really stuck into the minds of those who witnessed it. Like, why not? Why do I have to go read a whole book that you have already read? That'd be like going to a doctor's office and them being like, oh, I know what's wrong with you, but you have to read my medical school journals to figure it out. And at number 1, Dancing with the Stars. A few years back, Leah was asked to be a guest dancer on Dancing with the Stars, and as the season progressed, more and more backlash came up, mainly from the science community voicing their annoyance that she was fine to be on a show and dance her heart out, but other active and vocal members like Tom Cruise and John Travolta or anyone else who was on this list are questioned at every turn. Leah responded to the hate by informing people that the show that she was on had nothing to do with her views and was simply something fun that she wanted to participate in, and she was asked to do it. So this might have been part of the reason that she left the group for good, and every time she tried to exist outside of it, she was just questioned and brought right back in. Number 10, Justin Timberlake. One of the most discussed sections of The Woman in Me, a memoir by Britney Spears, is of course a revelation on what really happened while she was dating her Mickey Mouse Club co-star Justin Timberlake. After meeting JT in the clubhouse, the two sparked a romantic connection, and their connection was strong, but unfortunately Britney had to make a terrible decision in the year 2000 when she found out she was pregnant, and at first she was very excited about the whole thing because she wanted to be a parent. In her book, she revealed that she had planned on starting a family with Justin, but I guess it was just going to be a little bit earlier than she expected. Well, it turns out Justin, not so excited, and told her that they were both too young to start a family, continuing to remind her that their careers would also need to be put on pause. This revelation may be part of the reason that Justin reportedly was so nervous leading up to the book's release, and since the book's release, he's had to turn off his Instagram notifications because, hey, he's terrible and people want to let him know. Britney revealed that if the decision had solely been left to her, she would have gone through with the pregnancy, but she decided to go the opposite route instead. She claims that she only did this because Justin clearly didn't want to be the dad, and in the book she said that looking back, it was one of the most agonizing things she had ever experienced in her life. Number 9, Jamie Foxx. So this is one of the more recent secrets that's been revealed, so to speak. So far, this is just an allegation, but a woman is suing Jamie Foxx for alleged physical mistreatment at a rooftop restaurant. The allegations are being backed up by 2 eyewitnesses, a friend of the victim, and a security guard who saw the whole thing go down and let it happen. According to the unnamed woman, she spotted Jamie at a restaurant around 11 p.m. and after a couple of hours decided to ask him for a picture. Jamie was apparently under the influence, and according to the accuser, he became very handsy as the night progressed. He said yes to the picture and then apparently said that the woman had a model's body and smelled good. Then there are some darker and honestly pretty disturbing details that I can't go into in this channel, but if they're true, something tells me Jamie's career may be done. Truly just dark stuff. The court case is being brought forward as the Survivors Act is about to be implemented in the US. This act allows victims of physical offenses to bring civil cases to court after the statute of limitations has expired. The statute means that after a certain amount of time has passed, the victim can no longer file criminal charges. However, the new act means that civil cases are good to go. So we will see what happens to Jamie in the coming weeks. Number 8. Lizzo. Lizzo may have been a public advocate for body positivity, but as part of the lawsuit being brought up against her, it looks like all that positivity may have just been an act that she was putting on to make herself more universally loved. Now, I'm not a small man. In fact, I have what many call a dad bod, and I'm very cool with it. So I'm not dismissing the notion that we should love and respect ourselves, but come on, she made it a massive part of her personality on camera when it sounds like the only body she actually cared about was her own. According to her dancers, Lizzo regularly shames her team and makes them feel that they are too large or gaining weight, with several dancers confirming these claims. One of the dancers, Crystal Davies, who is part of this lawsuit, was fired for secretly recording a meeting between herself and Lizzo. The meeting was about the dancer's performance on stage recently and her apparently disliking the weight that she had been gaining, claiming that she wasn't committing to the role. She was also bringing her dancers to weird places and making them do weird things. Lizzo was at a club in Amsterdam's red light district when she coerced, aka forced, a dancer to touch a woman's bare chest despite saying no several times. She also made them eat bananas from some no-no zones. Again, nobody's idea of fun. Currently, there is still a court case up in the air and no one knows what will happen, but so far Lizzo is maintaining that she did nothing and will prove her innocence. Number 7, Russell Brand. Even before the controversy surrounding Russell Brand came up this year, this dude was unwelcome everywhere. Royal events, awards shows, kids' birthday parties, who knows? For anyone who doesn't know, I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you, but Russell Brand is a terrible person. The man known best as a comedian, a bringer of joy, was secretly manipulative, aggressive, and at times violent with his ex-partners. Following in the news that a documentary about his life and career was set to release on BBC's Channel 4, several complaints got filed against him, alleging mistreatment during their time together. The allegations were actually reinforced by Russell's ex, Katy Perry, who they dated for quite some time, and she came to learn that Russell was short-tempered, opinionated, and stubborn. Russell's career was cancelled, and he's currently awaiting a trial. Number 6, Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors is currently the man behind Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. He was written as an important person in that franchise, being a villain in a couple of movies and recently a villain in the Loki TV show. Unfortunately for Jonathan Majors, an ex has come forward and alleged that Jonathan was physically violent towards her while they were together. Since March of this year, Majors and his team had been adamant that the situation was blown out of proportions and that there really is nothing to be upset about, which is always a fun thing to say to people during these situations. In fact, in June, Majors filed his own cross-complaint accusing his accuser. The prosecutors refuted these claims and told him they had no plans on prosecuting Grace Jabari, who was the woman who accused him. Majors has been dropped from his agency, and so far his role on TV and film is pretty up in the air. I mean, his character Kang may even be kicked out of the MCU and replaced by Doctor Doom, so let's see what happens as the year progresses. Number 5, Jada Pinkett Smith. Cheating rumors and dating scandals followed Jada and Will throughout their entire relationship. Since day one, people were convinced that they were in an open relationship or had just been straight up cheating on each other. Turns out that those rumors were kind of true, because ahead of the release of her book Worthy, Jada sat down with People magazine and every other news outlet to share some inside info. The most revealing one was that herself and Will Smith were actually separated for 7 years. Of course, that's not all though. Jada is slowly ruining that guy's life and then some. When Jada revealed the truth about her separation from Will, she claimed that by the time they reached 2016, they just became exhausted with each other. The news of their separation was a mild shock at best, because Super Sleuth fans claim that they had proof Will and Jada were separated a long time ago. Some of the clips that were submitted as evidence of Will and Jada just prove it, because Will and Jada was on Red Table Talk and he looks drained. He just looks like a man dealing with so much mentally speaking. In her conversation with Will, she literally says that herself and Will had basically broken up, but instead of just outright admitting the information, she decided to hold on to it until the release of her book. A lot of Jada fans commented on the resurfaced clips, and we can all agree just Will is having a rough time, and I just feel for this guy at this point. I could go on and on about how terrible Jada Pinkett Smith is, but I've only got a couple of minutes and I already wrote a lot of lists about why she's bad, so go check them out. Number 4, Mark Wahlberg. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991, and despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids cartoon, the crew had a small following and garnered quite a bit of success. Enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted, picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark play the leading man, Danny Wallace, a police officer who attempts to stop substance trafficking and corruption by the Chinese triads. He had a successful acting career that's recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and he looks great at 52, so please don't hurt me, Mark Wahlberg. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the time he was 13. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested at the age of 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was walking home late one night under the influence of hallucinogens when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time confirmed that Mark did have a bit of a racial bias with his upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who, wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which made contact and knocked one of them unconscious. He was eventually released after serving only 45 days of a 2-year prison sentence, and he vowed to change his life forever. So far, that promise seems to be kept, and I can personally confirm that he's a very polite and patient person because he watched a movie at a theater I used to work at. He travels with like 5 people at all times. It's a little intimidating. Number 3, Margo Robbie. Margo may be a perfect Barbie on screen, but apparently behind the scenes, she may be a psycho. In a recent interview with BBC Radio 1, Margo reminisced about a little prank she pulled on an old babysitter. It involved kitchen cutters, which is the word I'm forced to use for See, they bleep it out. Apparently, Margo has just gotten a new babysitter, a much older woman that just was not as cool as Talia, her old babysitter, so she hatched a plan of sweet, sweet revenge. After a particularly trying day where Margo refused to take a bath, she decided to kick the old lady out for good and grabbed ketchup, a stabby-jabby device, and laid face down on the kitchen tiles. You know, the old I'm kinda dead routine. As you may expect, her babysitter walked in, took one look, screamed, and just jogged out the door. She was gone. She traumatized the woman, who quit, and Margo successfully got her old babysitter back. But that's very messed up, and Margo was so young when she did that. That is so dark, a dark place for someone's mind to go that early on. Was she secretly a little crazy this whole time? Might explain why she is the best Harley Quinn we've ever seen on screen. Number 2, Tim Allen. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear, the star of ABC's popular sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. And while he may have played a family man on TV, a lot of fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some pretty bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a couple of bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 grams or more. Like, there was a guy from the government just next to his car like, oh, 650, all right, well, if you got 650, then you're going to jail. However, that sentence was never served, and it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, it led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state one, so he was able to ignore that new policy. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. So think about this entire entry and tell me that wouldn't be a great movie. Number 1, Danny Matheson. Danny Matheson was that 70s show's popular boy, and it helped launch several careers, including Mila Kunis, Ashton Kutcher, and of course himself. Danny was also on this show, and it turns out the allegations against him date back to 2004 and were reported in 2004. Danny was still on the show when an investigation took place. 4 women reported that he had mistreated them physically, prompting local law enforcement to halt production of that 70s show and bring Danny in for questioning. The investigation brought little to no actual evidence to the table because it was just that time, so Danny was let go and the whole thing was forgotten about. But that means that Ashton and Mila watched this dude shut down their project and still said, hey, he's a great guy. When the charges come up again 15 years later, people are still sticking to his side that he was friends with, but it turns out that he was an actual menace and a horrible person, and he's gonna go to jail. Thankfully, in 2023, it's a lot easier to confirm allegations like this, and he was recently sentenced to 3 years in prison. Number 10, Lindsay Lohan. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan faced a ton of public scandals, but one that's not talked about often enough actually took place behind the scenes of a little show called Ugly Betty. Lohan was a guest star on the show in the 3rd season playing Kimmy Keegan. Kimmy was supposed to stick around for 6 total episodes, but that number was shrunken down to just 4. The reason being was her co-star and, the lead of the show, America Ferrera, just didn't get along with Lindsay on set. According to America and several of the Ugly Betty crew members, Lindsay would just show up with an entourage of people, usually under the influence of herbs and spices, and the production crew had to repaint her dressing room when she left because it was just so messed up. One crew member alleged that she would cut images of her own face out of magazines and tabloid articles as if she were making a collage of some kind. America claims that one scene took over 30 takes to get right because they just kept flubbing their lines. Lindsay's team of buddies have been adamant that America had too much power and was the sole reason that she was asked to leave the show. Unfortunately, if you do bad things and enough people know about it, karma comes around. Number 9, Julianne Moore. Creative differences, the phrase that has been behind some of the most tragic Hollywood stories in films that could have been, and in this case, roles. For an industry centered around creativity, the movie industry can be awfully risk-averse, especially when it comes to the decision of casting a lead. Now, it's not uncommon for actors to suddenly be thrust out of productions in lieu of a new face, or in some cases, the original choice that you were replacing. A good example of doing it yourself, though, is Julianne Moore, the actor from films like the 2013 reboot of Carrie and the action flick Kingsman: Golden Circle, was set to play the leading lady in the critically acclaimed dramedy Can You Ever Forgive Me? And she was casted as the character Lee Israel, a writer who falls out of step with current culture and decides to embellish her writing, basically inventing the concept of fake news. Julianne began filming her scenes, but was asked to leave the production only 1 month into filming. According to the director Nicole Holofner, portrayal of her character just wasn't what she had in mind while writing. Julianne played the role with too much of herself influencing the overall appeal. When directed to try to play the role another way, Julianne continued to give a similar performance, and she was ultimately replaced by Melissa McCarthy, better known for her more comedic roles in movies like The Heat and Bridesmaids, but her turn as Lee is considered to be one of her greatest acting achievements of all time, even landing her a nomination for Best Actress at the 2019 Oscar ceremony. Julianne didn't take the news all that well, but did eventually move on and has made a couple of solid flicks since, so it all worked out in the end for everybody. Number 8, Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is best known for his role as the Fonz on Happy Days, and he was set to direct Tom Hanks in the much-loved buddy cop movie Turner and Hooch. Unfortunately, these two had a pretty rough history together before that. The Fonz had actually fought with Hanks in character on the set of Happy Days for an episode a few years before, and it would appear that Tom wishes that he could fight Henry for real. As rumor has it, the two of them just didn't get along at all, so much so that a few days into filming Turner and Hooch, with Henry behind the wheel, Tom ordered Winkler to be removed from the set and replaced as director. That's the kind of power Tom Hanks wields. He can just walk on set and be like, no. Not only did Tom complain that Henry's behavior as director was annoying, he complained that Henry was just overall bad at his job. It would take double the average time to reset a shot on set, he had minimal control over his actors, and he was apparently very frustrated with having a dog on the set. Like, did he even read the script before he took the job? That dog is a national treasure. What makes this firing even more tragic is the fact that when Winkler was delivered the news, one of the film's producers ripped Henry's contract up in front of his face. Over the years, when asked about the incident, Henry denies that he's ever had any kind of personal or professional issues with Tom Hanks. Tom's never given us any reason to think that he would lie about something like that. What would he have to gain? I defeated the Fonz. Hey, so did ABC when they canceled his show. Number 7, JeanClaude Van Dam. The Belgian actor JeanClaude Van Dam was just on the verge of coming into his own career as the Muscles from Brussels when he landed a job opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1987's action flick Predator. Now, this sounded like the perfect casting choice, right? Jean would have worked alongside the likes of Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura, and while that may have turned out cool, the reality was that Jean wasn't casted to play a role as one of the Marines at all. Instead, he was casted to play the titular Predator himself. The special effects artists behind the project called the experience with Jean as a hilarious comedy of errors, in which nobody knew exactly what the other was expecting. Apparently, nobody had informed Jean that the role was basically just a glorified stuntman. They were prepared to direct him to just hop around like a frog, but John was obviously confused and upset with this choice. According to John, he had just gotten off the boat, and he was under the impression that he was going to be showcasing his martial arts skills to the world, but was instead reduced to a massive, slow-moving alien with dreadlocks. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Van Dam was furious and dispirited about spending this entire movie coked up in a clunky and often ridiculous-looking suit, and was ultimately fired and replaced with Kevin Peter Hall. The idea that he was just on set like, I can barely move in this thing, just brings me so much joy. Number 6, Shia LaBeouf. In 2013, Alec Baldwin was attached to star in a Broadway production of the show Orphans alongside Transformers alumni Shia LaBeouf. Now, from day one of rehearsal, Shia and Baldwin were at each other's throats. Shia's problem was that Alec was not off script. This was something that he considered to be very unprofessional. Shia has since claimed that he was so nervous about the show that he made sure to memorize his lines before he even set foot on the stage. His methods were not reciprocated by Alec, who simply showed up with a coffee in one hand and a script in the other one, planning to rehearse in the moment. Shia was furious and apparently yelled at Alec to learn his lines right now. He was the lead. That's the deal. After a couple of weeks and one particularly rough day where Shia blew up at him in front of a ton of cast and crew, Alec took 5 and had a meeting with the producers. He said that if Shia wasn't let go, that he was gonna quit. Well, producers caved and Shia was let go. In the tabloid, they claimed creative differences, but Shia later shared his side, clearly upset with being dropped as if he meant nothing to the show. Number 5, Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is one of the groundbreaking actors and directors of the 1960s and 70s New Hollywood, now eventually finding his niche in the early 90s, playing villains in films like Speed, Waterworld, and the live-action Mario movie where he plays Bowser. Yes, that exists. No, it's not good. So it came as no surprise when he was casted to play Christoph, the all-powerful TV producer controlling Truman Burbank's life in the film The Truman Show. The cast was stacked and it included Hollywood heavyweight Jim Carrey as the titular Truman. Anyone with a brain cell would have been excited to be a part of this movie, still considered to be one of Jim's best dramatic performances. However, 2 days into filming his scenes for Christoph, which were only supposed to take 10 days to film, Hopper was unceremoniously let go from the set. Apparently, Dennis had a contract in place with producer Scott Rudin that he would be fired should his work be unsatisfactory. He must have been pretty bad in the role, as the director Peter Weir has been described as extremely reluctant to ever remove an actor from a movie. Reports later surfaced that Hopper was basically half asleep while playing the character, and while Christoph wasn't written to be, a manic madman, he did require just a little bit of effort to be properly portrayed. Ultimately, Ed Harris stepped in to play the role after production had been desperately trying to replace Dennis to avoid having this film be shut down entirely. Thankfully, that never happened, and The Truman Show has gone on to be one of the most depressingly heartfelt films Jim Carrey has ever made. Oh, and Ed actually got nominated for an Oscar, so sorry Dennis, looks like they made a good move. Number 4, Eric Stoltz. Alright, here, let's talk about a little bit of the 1985 comedy sci-fi Back to the Future. I loved this movie growing up. The story followed Marty McFly, a high school student who's accidentally sent back to 1955 in a DeLorean invented by his close friend and scientist Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, and no, we're not going to talk about that friendship even though it's a little strange. And they're forced to get his future parents together before he disappears from existence. Now, whoever pitched this movie must have been lacking some sleep. The film went on to spawn 2 sequels, creating what's considered to be one of the greatest film trilogies of all time, and while Michael J. Fox may have played the iconic Marty McFly, he actually wasn't the first actor to put on that puffy vest. A young man named Eric Stoltz was initially casted to play the role. You may not recognize Eric because his most famous character was drenched in prosthetics and makeup, playing the character of Roy L. Dennis in the film Mask, a man with severe facial and skull deformities. He was nearly halfway through shooting this movie when the news came that he was going to be replaced by Michael J. Fox. Fox was the director Robert Zemeckis' first choice, but he was initially unable to sign on to the project because of his prior commitments to the show Family Ties. Eventually, though, the 2 studios were able to find a way to make it work and allowed him to film both projects. This is why you may notice that a majority of Marty's scenes that take place outside are at night, because it was the only time that he could film for like 60% of this movie. Robert wanted Eric out from the very beginning though, because his portrayal of the character was just too intense, a lot more intense than the writers had in mind, not to mention Eric read the end of the movie as a tragedy instead of a happy ending. Spoiler alert for a movie that's like 40 years old. At the end of the first film, Marty returns to 1985 after successfully getting his parents together, but instead of being poor and depressed, the family is thriving and successful, and somehow Eric took that as Marty being an outsider in a world he didn't know. But just like, look at the truck he has parked in his garage, like nothing tragic about that. His intensity combined with his depressing performance of the finale got him kicked off of the film only minutes after Fox was available. Number 3, Alyssa Milano. Alright, let's talk about the show Charmed, a solid series that was on the air for 10 years. The series followed 3 sisters that discover they're descendants of a line of good female witches and are destined to fight against the forces of evil. Yeah, it was a fun show. However, just because you play sisters on set doesn't mean that you're gonna be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling that they didn't pay her enough to do the thing she was doing, only she didn't say thing she was doing. She said a bad word. She called Alyssa Thomas's behavior appalling, claiming that she cried every time the show got renewed for another season because it meant more time on a toxic set. Alyssa never shared her own comments on the situation and was eventually let go from the show, confirming what she was being accused of. Number 2, Thomas Gibson. Thomas made a name for himself starring as one of the leads of the series Criminal Minds. He was on the show for a few years, and in that time he made a few problems for the people unfortunate enough to be staff members of the series. There were a few issues over the years that would have warranted some action, like screaming at producers and writers for not doing a good job, but the incident that got him kicked off the show for good involved a kick. In 2016, Thomas was swiftly fired from the series after an incident with a writer named Virgil Williams. An internal investigation revealed that Thomas kicked Virgil one day during production of an episode that Gibson was directing. Now, as I've said before, that was not the first incident on set that really should have resulted in some kind of punishment. In 2013, he pleaded no contest to no-no juice related reckless driving after being arrested under a DUI, and 3 years before that, he allegedly shoved an assistant director, Ian Wolfe, during a late-night location scene. That led to the studio ordering Gibson to take 8 hours of anger management, which clearly worked out. According to most of the people on set though, Thomas was a wild card. Some days he'd be friendly and accommodating, and the next, nuts. And at number 1, Richard Gere. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. You know, sometimes people just get hired for films because they have a face for it or a style. For Richard Gere, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film The Lords of the Flatbush. Now, he was cast to star alongside Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, these two just didn't get along. Their beef was strong and long-lasting throughout production until it finally came to a head when one day Richard was just a little bit too into one scene and grabbed Sylvester aggressively by his collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. Now, the scene was being filmed on Coney Island, and when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car. Sounds peaceful, right? Well, then suddenly Richard came in and joined him with half of a chicken dripping in mustard. Despite Sly's warning about the mustard, it dripped all over his pants, and in true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face and threw him out of his car. The altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no! We have to decide between Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone. I wonder how quick that decision was. Number 10. Russell Brand. Even before the controversy surrounding Russell Brand came up this year, this dude was unwelcome at royal events, award shows, birthday parties, anything and everything public. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm sorry to be the one to inform you, Russell Brand is secretly a terrible person. The man known best as a comedian, a bringer of joy, has secretly been manipulative, aggressive, and at times violent with his ex-partners. Following the news that a documentary about his life and career was set to release on BBC Channel 4, several complaints were filed by exes alleging that Russell had mistreated them during their time together. The allegations were actually reinforced by Russell's ex-fiancée, Katy Perry. They dated for over a year and a half, and in that time, she came to learn that Russell was short-tempered, opinionated, and stubborn, qualities that make a man a terrible person. Russell's career was canceled, and he's currently awaiting a trial. Number 9. The Oprah Maui Scandal. Oprah has been claiming to be many things since the Maui backlash has begun. A good boss, a charitable woman, and an advocate for the island of Maui. By starting this fund and donating her spare millions, she's made her mark in the public as a woman who cares so much. So much that she's asking you to give her your money as well. Isn't that nice? Well, not really. The money that she donated turned out to be taxed, so she didn't actually donate anything, and of course, the main issue that people have with Oprah is that she's a billionaire asking average everyday people for money. As I've mentioned in previous videos, Oprah would not care about Maui or its people if she didn't have a vested stake on the island. Oprah has had property in Maui for quite some time, being almost a second home to her. When the fire started raging, she started fundraising. Think about all of the things that have happened in the past few years. We all forgot about Australia being on fire in 2020. Western Canada was on fire earlier this year. Some parts of Florida have been underwater and are still right now. Yet, Oprah has decided to dedicate her time and money to helping out the area where she has a vacation home. Number 8. Colleen Ballinger. Former YouTuber Colleen was accused by several of her young fans as being a creepy creepo who wanted to be their friend. Colleen is best known for her character Miranda Sings on YouTube, who became so popular that she received her own Netflix series. If you want to watch it, I'm sure you will need a VPN or something. It's probably banned in every country. She was basically messaging her fans to deliver so-called advice when she was really trying to just manipulate them into being her little minions. And not the little yellow guys with the glasses, that'd be different. There was a massive amount of proof in the pudding. Fans had screenshots of conversations, with one fan claiming that she actually sent him lingerie as a joke. Oh man, lace underwear, hilarious. Following instant backlash from the world, Colleen decided to post an apology online, which she did, while playing a ukulele. This woman is shown to be weird to everyone, and she thought it was appropriate to go online and sing about it. In response to the cringiest apology of all time, her fans resurfaced a video that really should have gotten her canceled when it first came out. A few years ago, she decided that it would be an awesome idea during one of her live shows to sing and dance to Beyonce's Single Ladies while in blackface. Yeah, it is the roughest clip of Colleen. She's just barefoot on stage, wildly flailing and waving her arms, and nobody at that show was like, that's weird. Yeah, the world's great. Number 7, Jada Pinkett Smith. Cheating rumors and dating scandals have followed Jada and Will Smith throughout their entire relationship. Since day one, people have been convinced that they're in an open relationship or they were cheating on each other on and off. Well, it turns out that some of those rumors were actually true. Ahead of the release of her new book, Worthy, Jada sat down with People magazine to share some inside information. The most revealing was that herself and Will Smith have actually been separated for like 7 years. Now, of course, that's not all. Jada's actually slowly ruining this man's life and mental health. When Jada revealed the truth about her separation from Will, she claimed that by the time they reached 2016, they had become exhausted with trying to make things work. The news of their separation was like a mild shock at best, because Super Sleuth fans claim to have proof Will and Jada have been separated forever, and the proof is in the interviews. The first clip to be submitted as evidence was Will and Jada's Red Table Talk interaction, where she admitted to the entanglement with August Alsina, simultaneously admitting to a brief separation. In the conversation, she literally says that herself and Will had basically broken up, but instead of just telling us right then and there, she decided to hold on to that information for a better time. A lot of Jada fans have commented on the resurfaced clips, saying that Will looks drained, like he's clearly dealing with a ton mentally speaking. Now, I could go on and on about how terrible Jada is, but I've done lots of videos about that in the past, so go and check those out. Number 6, Justin Timberlake. One of the most discussed sections of The Woman in Me, a memoir by Britney Spears, is of course the revelation of what really happened while Britney and her Mickey Mouse Club co-star Justin Timberlake were together. After meeting JT in the clubhouse, the two sparked a romantic connection. Their connection was strong, but unfortunately Britney had to make a difficult decision in the year 2000, after she found out she was pregnant. At first, Britney was actually pretty excited about the whole thing. In her book she revealed that she had planned on starting a family with Justin at some point, just that this was going to be a little bit earlier than she expected. Well, turns out Justin was not so excited and told her that they were both too young to be starting a family, continuing to remind her that their careers would also need to be put on pause. The revelation may be part of the reason that Justin has reportedly been so nervous leading up to the book's release, and might be why he's turned his Instagram comments off. Britney revealed that if the decision had solely been left to her, that she would have gone through with the pregnancy, but she decided to go the opposite route instead. She claims to have only done it because Justin so clearly didn't want to be the dad. In the book, she said that looking back, it is one of the most agonizing things she has ever experienced in her life. Number 5, Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors is currently the man behind the purple cape of Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. Kang has been written as a very important figure in Marvel. In Ant-Man Quantumania, he was the main antagonist, only he was just acting as a variant of the real antagonist, which was an army of Kangs from across the multiverse. I know, I'm gonna get geeky for a second. Including He Who Remains, a Kang variant from Loki, who once again acted as a major part of the Loki series. Unfortunately for Majors, an ex has come forward and alleged that Jonathan was physically violent towards her while they were together. Since March of this year, Majors and his team have been adamant that the situation's blown out of proportions and that there's nothing to be upset about. In fact, in June, Majors filed his own cross-complaint accusing the accuser. Prosecutors refuted these claims and told him that they had no plans to prosecute Grace Jabari, the woman who accused him. Majors has been dropped from his agency, and so far his role on TV and film is up in the air. Spoiler alert for Loki Season 2. The series ended with Kang not really being He Who Remains anymore, and it's unclear of what's gonna actually happen. Now, there have been rumors that his role in the MCU as the big bad will be replaced by Doctor Doom, so We'll see. Sorry if you don't like nerdy stuff, that's just my little tangent. Number 4, Lizzo. Lizzo may have been a public advocate for body positivity, but as part of a lawsuit being brought against her, it seems like all the positivity might have just been an act that she was putting on to make herself more universally loved. Now, I am not a small man. In fact, I have what many people consider to be a dad bod, and hey, I'm cool with that, so I'm not dismissing the notion that we should love and respect ourselves, but like, she made it a massive part of her personality on camera, and when it sounds like the only body she actually cared about was her own. According to her dancers, Lizzo regularly shamed her team and made them feel like they were too large or gaining weight, with several dancers confirming these claims. One of the dancers, Crystal Davies, who is part of the lawsuit, was actually fired for secretly recording a meeting between herself and Lizzo. The meeting was about the dancer's performance on stage recently, and Lizzo apparently disliking the weight that she had been gaining, claiming that Crystal just wasn't committing to her role. She was also bringing her dancers to strange places and making them do things against their will. Lizzo was at a club in Amsterdam's red light district when she coerced, aka forced, one of her dancers to touch a woman's bare chest, not something that she wanted to do. She also made them eat bananas from some no-no zones that, again, not their idea of fun. Currently, it's still up in the air as to what the outcome will be in this trial, and so far Lizzo is maintaining that she has done nothing wrong and will prove her innocence any day. Number 3, Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner. Joe and Sophie got together back in 2016 after they had been set up by mutual friends, something that they had apparently been trying to do for quite some time. They got together and instantly fell in love, getting married just over a year after getting together. Sophie admitted to Rolling Stones in 2019 that she was hesitant at first because Joe was a big musician, she was a big TV and film star, meaning that most of the time they would be on opposite ends of the world. Eventually, she warmed up and got together with Joe officially. The split came out of nowhere. For the most part, their relationship has seemed to be stable on the outside. They were never a part of cheating scandals, which is surprising considering Joe's lack of discretion. There were never any strange rumors, photos, they were just like a happy couple. As of September 1st, Joe Jonas filed for a divorce from Sophie, with the only current information being that Joe has claimed the relationship is irretrievably broken. Something pretty serious must have gone down in a very short amount of time, because only hours before this announcement, Joe posted a photo of himself on Instagram with his ring on full display. Now, despite the minimal amount of tea spilt so far, we are in for one super messy and public divorce. Things have settled down a bit in the past few weeks, but Sophie was actually just spotted getting cozy with another dude very recently, so you can imagine who's taking things harder at this point. Number 2, Danny Madison. That 70s show was a popular sitcom that helped launch several careers, including Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher. Danny was of course also on that show, but it turns out the allegations that date back to 2004 surrounding Danny were reported in 2004. Danny was still on the show when an investigation took place. 4 women reported that he had mistreated them physically, prompting local law enforcement to halt production and bring Danny in for questioning. The investigation brought little to no actual evidence to the table, so Danny was let go and the entire thing was forgotten about. But that means that Ashton and Mila literally watched this man go in for questioning and still called him a role model in their character witness letters. It just makes no sense. Their jobs were literally stopped while this man was under investigation, and when the charges came up again 15 years later, they were still on his side. Thankfully, in 2023, it's a lot easier to confirm allegations of this nature, and he was recently sentenced to 3 years in prison, so justice served. Number 1, Jonah Hill. Jonah was once the funniest man in town, shifting his efforts to the world of drama and creating a really nice career where he could just do anything he wanted, really. Unfortunately for fans of Jonah Hill, some information came out earlier this year that called his character into question. Reminder, this isn't my opinion, these are things that just happen in the world and are public knowledge, okay? An ex-girlfriend of Jonah's posted screenshots from past conversations, and the conversations ranged from Jonah just asking her to tone down the photo she was posting, to asking her not to do her job. For those of you who don't know, his ex Sarah works as a surfing instructor, and Jonah was asking her to not surf with men while working, and that she wear more than a bikini while she did so. When Sarah released these screenshots, she underlined them, calling Jonah a narcissistic misogynist, but also said she didn't really want anything bad to happen to him, so Since the messages have been released, there has been a massive online debate as to where Jonah stands in the eyes of the public. Some people feel that canceling him entirely is just a bit too much, and compared to some of the other scandals in Hollywood, especially that I just covered, Jonah Hill is relatively chill. Others want his name wiped from the face of the planet and never to be heard from again, so I don't know, give and take. Number 10. Tragedy. One of the more truly tragic revelations since the book's release is the fact that Megan suffered a loss very late in her journey as a mom. Within the final pages of the poetry book, Megan describes the heartbreaking pregnancy loss that she suffered with her fiance Colson Baker, better known as MGK. Megan told Kana Whitworth from ABC News that she had never been through anything like that before in her life. She has 3 kids already, so it was very difficult for both of them, and it sent them on a very wild journey together and separately and together and apart, trying to navigate what everything means and why it happened. Megan has made it clear since day one that this is not some expose memoir that you're going to sit down and read for 20 hours on end. This is a collection of truth told through her words. A story that needed to be shared or it was going to make her sick. She's dealt with physical violence from exes, manipulation, tragedy, all these things that she's had to deal with alone or behind closed doors. While she never names any names in her book, we still feel our hearts ache and wrench when she reads a single sentence. Number 9. Addicted to Boys. The title of Megan's book of poems is called Pretty Boys Are Poisonous and is filled with multiple excerpts regarding her past relationships. One thing that she's spoken about briefly in interviews about this book is the fact that she was addicted to boys and had a history of getting together with her co-stars. She told Drew Barrymore on the Drew Barrymore Show that when she was young, she was really rebellious and wild, always running away to fall in love with a new flame, aka every single co-star. She added that at the time, she felt herself to be a free spirit and was just addicted to the idea of falling in love. She went on to tell Drew that it was actually her kids, Noah, Bodhi, and Journey, that changed her whole mindset on relationships and love. She shares her 3 sons with her ex Brian Austin Green, and she claims that something happened when she had her first child. She realized she didn't want to repeat the pattern of her own parents with her kids. Despite being a solid mom, she did admit that she's been a little bad in the past, admitting that she painted a Friedrich Nietzsche quote on an ex's wall in a ton of paint just so they had to redo their room, poking fun at herself by saying anyone who dated her should write a poetry book as she was not a peach. Number 8. Oxy and Takiki. There is a poem in this book that shares a similar name to this entry, kind of. I'm not allowed to say the real thing on the internet. And restrictions. Megan revealed on Good Morning America that she has been in several physical and mentally damaging relationships. I know that's not even close to the right word to use, but again, can't say the real one. She explained that she was involved with a very famous dude, but that nobody knew that she was dating him. This unnamed celebrity is one of the men described as an evil ex in this book. In her poem, she describes a dark moment with this unnamed man, writing, "Your eyes go black and I know it's too late to run." She told people that she was pinned, spat on, and later had hands placed on her throat by a delusional and possessed man. I had the opportunity to listen to some parts of this book, and I am saying this with 100% sincerity. Go read this book. Megan is a wonderful writer, and I honestly feel like these words are so powerful. This particular one is indescribable. Like, I can't read the entire thing because it's got so many no words in it, but also I don't want to ruin it for you. Number 7, MGK rumors. Cheating rumors are always circulating about everyone. Nobody believes that Hollywood icons can partake in a normal, healthy relationship. For Megan and her fiance MGK, there have been rumors forever. Since the first day that these two were spotted together, people have been convinced that MGK is somehow an unfaithful maniac. But like, why do people think that? Not sure if you've listened to this guy speak about his music or just in general recently, but he's a bit of a sweetheart. I watched this man paint his nails with Drew Barrymore on her show. They talked about life, career, and so many cool things, yet the internet looks at this man and just assumes that he's a menace. Well, the rumors were of course false, and Megan Fox actually had to clear the air herself. There was a rumor that MGK was seeing someone named Sophie, who is MGK's guitarist. Megan cleared the air and let everybody know that not only had MGK never cheated on her, she was actually pretty close with bandmates and was confident that Sophie and her fiance were not an item. Megan told people that it was extremely disrespectful to run a news story that was baseless and contains only lies. Very true. Number 6, 2009 Golden Globes. Now, this isn't a revelation from a book, but it's something that she had to go through publicly, and it does deserve to be mentioned. In 2009, comments started flying left and right after Megan Fox was spotted acting a little bit strange at that year's Golden Globes award ceremony. She explained that during the event she was placed at a table with Blake Lively and the Jonas Brothers. In the center of the table was a bottle of Moe Champagne. She went through multiple glasses of that very quickly. At the time, she was not much of a no juice indulger, but following her actions at the event, she decided to quit for good. She actually had herself a good old-fashioned blackout at the event, but the parts that she does remember are not great. She went on the red carpet and said a lot of things that apparently got her in a ton of trouble. In a clip from 2009, Megan can be seen walking around telling people how nervous she was to be there and that she was on the verge of tossing up her cookies at any moment. She also made a ton of comments on her female co-stars, nothing bad. Just one quote I found in particular was her expressing how much she wanted to have Salma Hayek's chest. The evening was also a bit strange as people were wondering where her husband at the time, Brian Austin Green, was. She told people that he was a man with an ego and that he didn't want to be her date. Number 5. Shoplifting. Megan's done a lot of things over the years, and one of those things, as it turns out, is shoplifting. Not while she was famous though, she did not pull a Winona Ryder. She actually stole a $7 bottle of lip gloss from the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen makeup collection when she was still in her teens. She revealed in a resurfaced interview that the Walmart employees actually caught her and called the police. She was made to go to a real courtroom and appear in front of a real judge who gave her two options. Either she had to wear a sign that says, "I stole from Walmart," and stand outside for 3 days, or she could wrap Christmas presents. Guess which one she picked. So, hey, if you had Christmas presents wrapped at a Walmart in the US roughly 20 years ago, might have been Megan Fox. Hey, that's pretty cool. There is not a chance on this planet that that paper still exists, but hey, that'd be pretty valuable paper if it did. Number 4, Michael Bay scandal. Megan has been featured in several films over the years, but it was an interview about her time working with Michael Bay that landed her in a lot of hot water. The original live-action Transformers movies came out in 2007 and co-starred Megan and Shia LaBeouf in the leading roles. Now, they were fun films on screen, but behind the scenes there was apparently a ton of tension on set. According to Megan, who had previously worked with Michael on Bad Boys 2, working for Michael was like working for Schmittler. Fun fact, if you had sh in front of someone's names, you can say it online. Loophole. Of course, Michael didn't appreciate being compared to like one of the worst men in human history, so many speculated that her being left out of the third movie might have had something to do with this behind the scenes drama. She went on to call him bland and claimed that he had no personality or social skills, which is just plain rude. I don't know why she had to say that. When the comments were made public, her career began to slowly suffer. Not only was she written out of the Transformers series, but she was forced to make a public apology and retract her statements following the slew of backlash. She took a few years off, but Michael himself later acknowledged that there were missteps on both parts and accepted her retractions. But the pair were able to patch things up and work together on the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies from 2014. So, yay us! Number 3, Me Too movement. As some may remember, the Me Too movement began back in the mid-2010s and acted as a conduit for performers to speak out against their fellow Hollywood peers and, actually have their voices heard. Many celebrities were outed, and the situations with them are so bad that I can't even say their names. But I can make up new ones. People like Bill Cos, Harvey Hamburger Shop, and Kevin Spaceman were at the forefront of these allegations. Megan was actually left out of this conversation at the time, and it was mainly due to her being annoyed at Hollywood. She had actually been trying to out some of her peers for years, but according to Megan, she was ridiculed every time she actually spoke up. For Megan, she had already expressed how uncomfortable she felt on certain sets, especially Bad Boys 2, where she was under a waterfall at the age of 15, and claims that she had tried to bring attention to the misogyny that exists in Hollywood long before the movement existed. However, the movement only made her a bigger punchline. Even when she attempted to branch out into more female-led projects, she was apparently met with similar ridicule. She claims to have never felt truly included in the movement, but believes in it nonetheless. Number 2, lied about LA. Celebrities indulge their stories all the time. Most careers are literally built on the foundation foundation of lying for money. While Meghan may be great on screen, she's apparently a wonderful liar off screen as well. During an interview with GQ a while back, she detailed her wild nights out when she first moved to Los Angeles, detailing a specific club that she used to attend regularly called The Body Shop. Inside, she met a woman named Nikita and fell hard. Meghan explains that she would buy her things, frequent the establishments, and a few other steamy details that I can't get into. However, a few years later, the story was revealed to be heavily indulged by Meghan herself. She said that the story was true, but she might have exaggerated some of the aspects for fun. For instance, she made it seem like the relationship between herself and Nikita was physical or romantic, but that just wasn't the case. She just had a crush and they got along. Simple as that. And at number 1, legendary. While in attendance at the highly anticipated battle between Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier at UFC 264 in 2021, Meghan made some observations about the former president, Donald Trump. During an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, she revealed that the entire audience was in awe of this man attending the event. She said that when he entered, it was to a ton of applause, and that he was surrounded by tons of Secret Service agents, to which she said Trump was the legend. Now, when news broke that Meghan called him a legend, there was a ton of backlash, but she quickly clarified what she meant with the statement. She said that she doesn't align herself with any political parties or individual politicians. She never said that Don was a legend. She said that his appearance at the arena was legendary, okay? She ended the statement by sarcastically saying that she appreciated the uneducated, medieval, pitchfork-carrying, burn a witch at the stake mentality that the world needs more of. Well said.